It's time for the 32081 Scoreboard Show. Let's recap the latest weekly scores and highlights from around the county.
Hi, this is Hannah Rampy from the Ponte Vedra Sharks cheer team. Congratulations, Sharks football, on the victory over Leesburg. And now, entering the studio are Anthony Richards and The Todd.
And thank you, Hannah, for that great introduction. Here's Anthony Richards. How you doing tonight, Anthony? I'm sure you're probably covering a little bit of the storm and seeing what's going on with all the sports stuff and kind of another crazy week. I'm over this weather, man.
Yeah, I know it's a busy time for, not the right reasons, but excited just when we finally get to cover some football again.
Yeah, finally, right? So, So listen, real quick, they're like the unsung heroes for high school football, and that's our athletic administrative assistants. And I've had the pleasure of talking to Miss Janine Rosati over at Ponte Vedra, as well as Ms. Heather Davis over at Nease. And also I met Jennifer Castellano, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, down at Menendez earlier in the week. And they do such a great job behind the scenes. And I actually reached out to Ponte Vedra and Nease today, and they actually gave me a little bit of an update here for our listening audience. So Ms. Rosati said, as far as Ponte Vedra High School is concerned, all athletic events scheduled today, Tuesday 10/8 is when we're recording this, through Sunday 10/13 have been canceled. And she said, we don't have the rescheduled dates for the following. That's 10/9, that's the Ponte Vedra Girls Golf, the Slammer versus Decoy. 10/10, Ponte Vedra Girls Volleyball versus Ridgeview at Ponte Vedra. 10/10, Ponte Vedra Swim at Beachside, Nease at Planet Swim. And the 10/10 Ponte Vedra Sharks varsity football at home versus Middleburg. She did say that has been rescheduled actually to Monday 10/14 at 6 p.m. So that will be at the Tank. So that's a little bit of an update there. As we learn more, we might do some special podcasts here to keep everyone updated. And then Miss Davis over at Nease said, absolutely, I can totally understand, because she says you can imagine they're diligently working with all the changes. There were 11 competitions this week. Can you imagine that, Anthony? That have been affected. And one of them was the girls volleyball districts. They begin next week with seating being released on Friday. The other thing is that the varsity football game against Bartram, which is a district one, that has also been scheduled back to Monday, October 14th at 6:30. So both the Sharks and the Panthers will be playing on Monday night. That has a major effect on all sports.
Yeah, no, it's, weather, it just affects everything, not even, like the indoor sports, which are normally not affected by weather, but a hurricane and, just shuts down everything, and so it makes it difficult for everyone. The people trying to figure out the rescheduling behind the scenes, and also just the athletes themselves, having to just mentally stay focused and adapt on the fly.
Speaking of that, I was going to ask you about that. So you perfect segue, and we don't even plan for this, Anthony. Let me ask you about that. So we saw Nease having, 10 days off in between when they had to reschedule the game that they had to play just recently against Buchholz, of course, because of the storm. I mean, how much of it, here's my thing. Normally I would say that it would be an impact on the teams, but we've seen Nease and Ponte Vedra come back with some resilient efforts, and it's a credit to both coaching staffs. It's like they've got them focused. So it's like normally I would think there's going to be an effect, and then they'll come out and they'll just ball out. I mean, do you kind of feel the same way with these two teams?
Yeah, I definitely feel that, and like we said, we've seen it. In the way they play the games, they get down, they bounce back. They always have an answer, it seems like. So they definitely have shown. Yeah, normally, especially with high school kids, you never know, how coaches are always probably trying to keep them engaged and all within the game and week during practice and all. But these teams seem like they're very mentally strong, it seems like, in the way they play the game. So I'm sure off the field, I know they're the same way. And so I don't think this would affect them like maybe, your usual team and teams maybe even in other years. So I feel like they're both very mentally strong, and that's this during a time like this will come very handy for them and the coaching staff.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is that when you look at the Leesburg game, I think Brian Case probably realizes he probably should be on our show every week after he tore off a 150-yard performance. That's insane, man. He put himself in the record books. I know you were out there. I actually had to go down to Menendez that night. I mean, it just seems like he went on a tear. How did he look out there? I mean, he had to have looked great putting up that many yards.
Yeah, you looked great, especially coming out of the gate, just from the get-go. Just kind of they started coming out wanting to pound him, and the offensive line was doing a great job creating some huge holes, and he was able to hit those holes and then just get in the secondary. And once you get in the secondary, it's either he's going to stiff arm you or overpower you, or actually, or he's going to turn on the burners and then, show he's got some good speed. If you don't have an angle on him, he could be gone. So it's Yeah, I mean, he just kind of from the start. I wonder, I'm sure he knew, he was getting close to the record, but he always runs hard like that. So I mean, it wasn't a surprise, but it was just really nice to see the offensive line, opening up some huge holes, and he knew what to do once he saw him.
And it seems as the season's going on too. I mean, Brian had a touchdown, then Drew Price also had a rushing touchdown. We talked about Drew Price with like David Doherty last week, and now he hits Cam T for a slant over the middle, as you wrote in your article on the PonteVedraRecorder.com. It seems like Drew is starting to get a little bit more comfortable back there, and that's the thing that's amazing about they lose to Fleming Island. And when we talked to Brian, he seemed very calm and saying, "Hey, the coaches are keeping focused." And it seems just what they did in this game, that the offense in the first half, they had some success there and they opened up a lead, but it seemed like they're getting more comfortable as the season continues to progress.
Definitely. You can tell that they're getting comfortable, and he's getting comfortable, and he's really kind of really developed, and you can see it like in front of your own eyes, as I go and cover, pretty much every game, you can really see from game one to now, just the development, and a lot of it, has to do with just confidence, playing more games, getting more starting reps, and, you just get confident, and you believe now you thought you could make that throw. Now you believe you can make that throw, and you're not afraid to try to fit it in there, and you trust your guys because you've built up relationships with the younger receivers, and now you trust them to catch it when you throw it to them. So that just builds even more confidence. So it's just a ball of confidence, and you can tell right now in the way Drew and just the passing game in general is playing.
So it seems like what are they? The Jackets, the Leesburg Jackets.
Yeah.
It looks like they made some adjustments at halftime. I mean, they go in down 21-0. They end up coming back. Final score was 21-18, I believe. And It looks like they made some adjustments, but that you said that they were really committed to the run. But even though they scored 18 points, the defense was able to hold them and stepped up, which is what we've been talking about the Ponte Vedra Sharks defense this season.
Yeah, it was they were committed to the run early on, and then as they got down, they did start to pass, which was probably going to happen anyway because the running game wasn't really. I mean, they were committed to it, but it wasn't getting much. I mean, there was a wall up front against the run, especially early on for the Sharks, and so they did have to go, really strictly pass in the second half, and they were able to complete some passes, but it also allowed the Sharks, DNs to really, Riker Kemp and Robbie Greco and all the boys to really pin their ears back, and that's what they want is to, that third and long, but like almost on every play because you're down 3 scores, so you have to pass, and they can just get after you and create some real havoc.
And for the record, I don't like Monday night high school football games because I have to go into work the next day. It's a long day. That's all I'm saying. But now they're both going to be playing on Monday night, as we talked about. Since we're going a little out of order because we have a bye week with Nease, let me ask you this. Looking forward to next week's game against Middleburg, and looking at this, I like, actually, believe it or not, the extra day for Ponte Vedra. I like for them to rest. I think they're going to go into this district game a little bit fired up because the Fleming Island close loss. It's a district game. I just like the way they bounce back. I like the way the coaches have them focused. Brian's obviously running hard. We talked about Drew feeling more comfortable back there. He's getting multiple weapons, and also the defense stepping up against the Leesburg run. I like the Sharks in this game against Middleburg. I think it's going to be a hard-fought game, but I'm kind of wondering what's your opinion about this game?
I think they know it's a big game. It's not a district game, but Middleburg is undefeated. So it's a quality team so far this year coming in. So it's going to be a tough test. And that Fleming Island game, they showed a lot of adversity in that game. They came back and they almost won. And this time they get Middleburg at home. If they were at home against Fleming Island, you never know. Like that could have been the difference in swaying that game. So this time they are at home against Middleburg, and I think that'll will definitely help him. And in this point in the season, you've got guys, that are just nicked up, and it's just from playing so many weeks now in a row. And it's nice to have kind of maybe a little mini bye, get a couple more days off between there, playing a Monday night game, and it's definitely not going to hurt him. It's going to help him and make him feel a little more fresh, probably against the biggest game so far this year that they've had.
And going and switching over before we talk about JV over to Nease, this is what I want to ask you, Anthony, is that the thing that would scare me most as an offense, facing the Nease defense, is a well-rested Nease defense. And that's exactly what Bartram's going to face now because, You've had the delay because of the storm. They had a bye week just like Bartram did. But one thing is that some people might say, well, they're going to be off for 3 days or whatever it is. But this defense is so in sync as we've seen and so resilient and battling back. I think they're just going to be fresh. They're going to come out of the gate. They're going to play hard. I'm going to go and call it right now. I think that Nease wins this one by 3 touchdowns, and I think the defense is going to give Jaden Weatherly and the offense of the Bartram Bears a little bit of difficulty.
And he gives Coach Garth more time to just scheme and have a good game plan. It gives maybe he in the next couple of days he sees something that he didn't. He thought the game plan was set. Maybe he wants to throw a little wrinkle in there.
That guy's always coaching, man. I think that guy's coaching when he's sleeping. He's always coaching. It's really fun to watch, but you're right. You're giving him extra time to look at film, and that's very, very dangerous.
Yeah, and he's got I think what makes it so mesh so well this year is that he's got a group of players, and so many of them they're just football players. They want to eat, sleep, and breathe football. They want to play football. They can't wait till the next chance they get to play football. They a lot of them even love going to practice just because it's a chance to throw the ball around and play some type of football. And so, that was Coach Garth. So they're a lot like him, and I feel like it's a perfect mesh of just styles this year, and it's just like he's coaching guys that get how he comes, and it's a similar approach, and then they're always in the film room, and that's what makes this defense so dangerous. So yeah, you got to give them just a little extra time, and they may find something that could be the difference in a close game.
I was also wondering if you noticed this about Nease, like I did. You'll see the defense and the offense. They'll come off field. They'll go to the little tent. They'll watch video. But the one thing that's very interesting about this Nease team this year is you see very few players sitting on the bench. They'll look at the video, they'll get up, and then whether they're on defense, they're back on the sideline cheering on the offense. Whether they're the offense team on the sideline, they're cheering on the defense on the field. It just seems like a very cohesive all-cross unit that we haven't seen in Nease. And like I said, they've been close. I'm not saying they're bad, but this team just seems like something special as far as how they really pull for each other and support each other.
Yeah, they're close, and yeah, they know that it takes a team effort. It's not just them. They've got to do well and do their part, but they know the other parts are key in order to make all the cogs are key in order to make the engine run, and I think that they know that. So if they can say, hey, I saw this, and you come off the field and you can tell your teammate, hey, I saw you were kind of drifting that way, or I saw they're doing this, and you can give a little note to them to help their game, it helps the team as a whole. And I think that's something, especially the leaders on the team have really, really embraced this year. And they have a lot of good leaders on both sides of the ball, and it shows, and the younger guys are following in their footsteps. And that's how you're getting this great team chemistry and a hard-working team.
Well, listen, before we move on to an interview with a JV coach right here in the St. Augustine area in the 32081, just a quick reminder and a special thanks once again to Miss Rosati over at Ponte Vedra and Miss Davis over at Nease to send us the information that the Nease Panthers will play against Bartram Trail at Nease on Monday night, October 14th at 6:30, and Ponte Vedra will be at home against Middleburg on Monday, 10:14, and that will start at 6. Okay, so, and Anthony, that gives you some time to make it to both games. Do the first half and the second half like you normally do.
Yeah, a little bit of staggered time there. I'm not complaining about that for sure.
All right, well, we're going to shift a little bit. Anthony and I were talking that maybe we'd hit a little bit on JV and give a little bit of a nod to those players out there and those coaches. And I would like to welcome a very special guest to the 32081. He's been a friend of mine since he coached my son back in 7th grade. A lot of people know him around the Nocatee area. He's one of the best when it comes to working with these young kids. He's now the JV green coach over at Nease. I'd like to welcome Tony Hodge to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Hey, no problem at all. Coach, I wanted to have you on for a couple of reasons, but one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was that, I've known you for a number of years as a coach and as a parent, since both of our boys are friends and everything. And you've seen your son and many sons move from playing middle school to, say, freshman football or a JV team. And there's a lot of parents that say, hey, I want my kid to go right to varsity. But from a coach and also from a parent's perspective, how important do you see that transition going from, say, a middle school 8th grade team into a JV high school type of team and get used to the program and acclimated, so to speak?
Yeah, I think that the thing that's really, really stands out right away is, bigger, faster, stronger, right? A kid who's been at Nease or any high school program for that matter, who's been let's just talk about like sophomores. They've already been in the weight program for a year. They've been in the program for a year. Immediately they're bigger, faster, stronger than virtually, for the most part, any incoming freshman, right? So, my role kind of is to tap into, this kid right here is going to be at this, when we can get him to that next level, what do we see him doing? So really the tough part is matching a kid at a position where we feel like in 2 years, yeah, he's going to be a safety, right? So let's put him at safety now. Although maybe at this point in his growth and his development, he's not currently a safety. So what we try to do is we try to look down the road. Where is this kid going to be the most successful? We try to match him up, at even at the freshman level, we try to match him in that position.
And do you think that's probably something that's unusual? Because, like, for example, I know Nease, for example, this season, they had a dual threat quarterback and they were a little short at running back. So they asked the quarterback, hey, can you play some at running back as well? You see people moving, like you said, safety, cornerback. I saw a wide receiver move from playing wide receiver to cornerback, actually a couple of them. So would you say it's safe to say for parents to say, hey, listen, when your kid comes out of 8th grade, he may have played this one position, but when he gets into high school, kind of like what you're saying before, Tony, is that you're trying to find that perfect fit long-term, but there's also a short-term type of developmental period that you have to expect that your kid's going to go through throughout his whole entire high school football career.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell middle school parents a lot. My younger son's playing for a middle school right now. And my number one message to them is don't pigeonhole your kid into a position. Don't say, hey, my kid's a receiver. That's what he's going to be, period, end of sentence. That may be the case right now, but the amount of growth that kids do, that they go through from their 8th grade year to their sophomore year is really unbelievable. I remember Coach Draft's last year's senior class. A lot of those guys, he had posted a picture of them when they were freshmen. They're in the weight room and they were lifting, and it was just unbelievable. You're like, oh my gosh, look at them. They look like little kids. So my message is always, right, like, don't say my kid is a receiver, because your kid may end up being a linebacker, right? Because of his growth and his development he's going to go through over the next 2 years.
And it's funny you said that, because I actually remember when, totally unrelated to football, but what you just said was, I remember when my son was playing travel baseball, he played for a really good coach. And the very first practice, the coach said, and this was when, they were in, 10, 11U, and he said, here's my goal for you over the years as you play for me. When you go to high school and the coach says, what position do you play? Your answer is, what position do you need me at? And I'm like, I think that's a pretty good thing. You said, don't pigeonhole yourself, make yourself available, work out, get there, and just be able and willing to play any position that's asked of you.
And that's it too. And that's the thing that we communicate right off the bat with JV Green is, if you're a defensive player and you're an outside linebacker, well, learn the 2 inside backer position and then also learn the other side, right? Learn every linebacker position. And while you're at it, go ahead and learn all of the D-line positions too, right? Because I don't know what you're going to look like in 2 years. So that's really the thing, is learn everything. Learn as much as you can, coming in as a freshman.
One thing, and I'm going to catch you a little off guard, because I know I gave you a little bit of an update. I wasn't going to ask you, and I wasn't going to ask you this, but the one thing I thought was really cool is you're having a 1-1-1 season. You're seeing your kids grow. I've been watching your team. I see them grow. They're doing a great job as freshmen and playing up. But one of the cool things I saw was that I know you tied against Ponte Vedra, and of course everyone wants to walk away with a win. But it was funny because I was talking to some of the varsity players and also some of the JV Gold players, and they thought your win was ecstatic because they're like, this is the first time we've never lost to Ponte Vedra in a weekend. So I think it's also safe to say for the parents also that when your kids come in, and you've probably seen this in 9th grade, especially at these programs, the older kids do support the younger kids, and it will even help them farther on in the process of becoming a true high school varsity football player.
They absolutely do, and that's a credit to Coach Drass and Coach G. Is they cultivate, it's one team from freshman to senior. It really is one team, and if anybody can tell you, if anybody has firsthand experience of what you're about to go through your freshman year, it's the older guys, right? I see those guys all the time, helping and coaching and mentoring those younger guys, and I think that's really important, really, for any program.
All right, so now, for the last question I'm going to ask you is, I need you to take off your coach's hat for a second. And I need you to be a parent, a person that lives in the community, because you've had an unusual perspective as a coach to where, especially during this phenomenal season that Nease is having, you've been at the Ponte Vedra games, you've been at the St. Augustine games, taking off the coach's hat and being at all the different stadiums you've seen, like St. Augustine. You've been at the Ponte Vedra one before. So not just Nease, but what to you as a person, a part of this community, because Anthony and I always talk about the community support is huge in North Florida area, especially St. Johns County for football. And we've been saying, hey, listen, even if you don't have a kid on the team, pick up, go to the game, get a Chick-fil-A sandwich because you're in for some great football and some great entertainment. So what's it like for you? I mean, what have you experienced being on the field as a parent and seeing the community as a whole support whatever team is out on the field?
I think the number one thing that really steps out or really is pretty glaring is the amount of talent in St. Johns County, and especially this year. Like, Bartram's been historically good. St. Augustine's been historically good, but you feel like these beach sides, these Tecoys, these other schools are starting to compete, not just with St. Johns County schools, but with some of the bigger, Duval schools that have been really good. So really what you're seeing is the talent pool in St. Johns County is probably better than it's been. I mean, I think it depends what website you go to right now, but Nease is number one in the state in some of these rankings. And you're talking every class, like maybe two, maybe one. Some people have them one, some people have them number two. But then you just scroll down, right? And then there's a Ponte Vedra is in there, and Beachside is in there. And I don't know the rankings off the top of my head, but it's really, really amazing to see the amount of talent that's in St. Johns County. You compare that to 10 years ago, it's night and day, right? So I think it's really, really great to see. I think like you said, it makes for great games on Friday night. And if you're curious, or you're reading the Ponte Vedra Recorder, or you're reading any of these publications, you're like, wow, that team's really doing well. I would definitely say get out there on Friday night and come watch.
Well, Tony, I appreciate you joining us, but I do want to say this. I know that you and I, like I said at the beginning, we've been friends for a long time. But as a coach, I want to say thank you for everything you've done, because you've touched a lot of young kids' lives. I know from starting at 7th grade on, or even 6th grade, actually, because it was the first team over at PVA. We had some 6th graders on that team. And you've been a coach in the green, and I see the kids come up to you. They remember you after all those years and stuff. You've done a fantastic job. And I truly appreciate everything you do, as I'm sure everybody in the community does, because whoever has had the chance to have a child play for you are really lucky parents, because you definitely do a great job with them, and we appreciate everything you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you as well for what you're doing with the community and the podcast and everything. We listen every week. We're always excited for it to come out. So really appreciate everything you guys are doing too.
Absolutely, Tony. Thank you so much. And we wish JV Green a great end to their season, because you have 2 more games left? Is that right?
2 more games left, and it looks like we're fighting a hurricane again. But these kids are resilient. You got to really hand it to them. They've probably had 4x the amount of practices this year if they've had games, and they continue to work and really, really, proud of them. They're a resilient bunch, and hopefully we can play this Thursday. Awesome.
Well, thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing your team out on the field and seeing you finish out a successful JV Green season as the head coach.
You got it. Thank you.
I think it's really important. One of the things that people hear, Anthony, is we watch these kids grow and we see them get better. Even if we cover varsity the majority of the time, you see them, junior to senior. It's so important to have that JV experience when you move from being in 8th grade to 9th grade, because you and I know it better than anybody else. The bodies change like there's no tomorrow. It's unbelievable how big they get and how strong they get. So it's really important for us to have coaches out there like Coach Hodge doing a great job. And that's everyone across the area.
Oh, yeah. JV is just so important. I don't think people do fully understand. So every time we get a chance to highlight, what the people behind the scenes, the coaches and all are doing, putting their time in to help, because it's like, we talked about, like, that's the future. Those are the future varsity guys. So if you enjoy what you see at the varsity level, it's because they got good coaching and the experience was good and they want to keep playing. I know I've been in places working for other media outlets in other towns and other states where coaches they're like, man, we just don't have the numbers, like they don't have people at the school that want to come out and play football, and so that's where the experience starts, that JV level. That's where the seed is kind of planted early on, and then JV continues to just cultivate that. And that's where, they want to keep playing. They want to just keep playing and growing and being part of the team, and you develop the culture in those early levels. So it's so important.
As far as just to give you a kind of a recap of what I've seen around, been able to watch quite a few JV games, and it's kind of interesting to see how their programs go, because when I went down to Menendez, their JV team has got a kid by the name of Bryce Potek. I don't know if you've seen him, Anthony, but this kid is good. I mean, he hits the hole and runs hard. Their defense played against Ponte Vedra's freshman team. Again, Ponte Vedra, I wish I had his name, number 12. He's a wide receiver, played fantastic, but Menendez and Ponte Vedra, they both look like they're complementing the program that they're, the varsity program. These kids are going to be ready to go. Menendez, like I said, is really taking a turn. It seems like they're like I said, they're hitting hard. They're throwing the ball. They're rushing the ball. They're balanced. Very good program that they have over there. And then Tukoi, I got to tell you, they got a freshman quarterback, Carter Soule, plays very well. He had a hand injury following the game I saw, but he's playing very good. And again, Tukoi, I think, is also a team that's on the rise. They had a six quarter, I think, safety that was playing quarterback the first half, did very well. But Tukoi's another program. So I think when you look at these programs, Anthony, the football in St. Augustine, North Florida area is very strong. And again, compliments to these JV coaches who are doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, they're laying the foundation. I know this year, we've seen St. John's at the varsity level is just having, massive success. Nease and Ponte Vedra definitely among them, and Beachside, and and that again, that started years ago. It didn't start just this year. Like, this off season was big, but it started with these guys years ago. So it's just continuing to lay the groundwork for future success within the county. And it's all the time and hard work that the people behind the scenes put in, and it shows with the fruits of your work.
It's interesting to see, because I see a lot of kids that played in the middle school program here in St. Johns County that are going through the programs that have stayed together, or they're playing against. A lot of these kids played against each other, right? Especially between Ponte Vedra and Nease, and you see some over at Menendez, Tukoi, and Beachside. But it's just kind of cool to see how they're growing and they're in the programs, and you can kind of see like for example, when I watched Tukoi one night, it was really kind of cool to see how the quarterbacks were playing very similar to a style. Like, again, I don't want to compare them to Ryan Kilmer, but I'm saying as far as the style of the offense, how the flow worked, the passing lanes and everything, and how they were growing into that type of system that the coaches have implemented over at Tukoi. And it's just really cool to see. So I really encourage anybody that has a chance to go out and support a JV game and go out and watch them. It's a blast. I mean, they're putting it out there just as much as guys on Friday Night Lights, and it's a fun time to watch them.
Yeah, so it's nice to get a little bit of a familiarity with them, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so listen, so you're going to start out at Ponte Vedra this Friday, and I will see you over at Nease probably around halftime. So it's going to be a couple good games there with the Sharks hosting Middleburg and Nease hosting Bartram. Both district games, both big implications. So, again, Anthony, thanks for joining us. Great articles. I love the article out there this week about Brian Case and breaking the record. So if anyone gets a chance, go out there and read Anthony's articles over at PonteVedraRecorder.com. You can also follow him at ANTNY Rich. That's ANTNY Rich at X, formerly known as Twitter. And be sure to like and subscribe to our show to 32081 on any of the streaming platforms you're listening to. For Anthony Richards, I'm the Todd, and thank you for listening to the 32081 Scoreboard Show.
Thank you for listening to the 32081. We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Please don't forget to subscribe to the show so you can join us for the next episode.
I never miss an episode. It's the best.
Until next time, take care.